Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Capital G here, and if it sounds like I'm talking a bit more softly, well, I'm the only person awake at the moment, so I kind of have to. But I've been wanting to get this one on for a little while, so finally powering this one out to you. We have Karlov of the Ghost Council leading the way today, and he's bringing a friend. So let's start with Karlov himself here. Got a black and a white for a 2/2 Spirit Advisor, and whenever you gain life, you get to put 2/1/1 counters on Karlov of the Ghost Council. You can also pay a black and a white and remove 6 of those +1/+1 counters to exile target creature. Now, really, the biggest reason I'm playing him is because I wanted to run Larrus as a companion. And to do so, I have to respect the restriction of having each permanent card in my starting deck having converted mana cost 2 or less. There is a little bit of synergy, as Larrus has lifelink, so he can gain some life for us. And during each of our turns, we could cast a permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from our graveyard. Really cool stuff here. Before I dive into the deck tech, I want to also mention Ailey. She is not in the deck, but if you wanted to build an Orzhov deck with Larrus as the companion, you have your choice of either Ailey or Karlov to meet that 2-mana requirement for your commander. I also want to step further on the restriction. So, Larrus says that only permanents need to cost 2 mana or less. But the way I built the deck, every card in the deck costs 2 or less. And it turns out there's tons of options in Orzhov for CMC 2 or less. You can actually do life gain strategies, you can do aristocrat strategies, you can even do stack C hate bear strategies. There's lots of cool things you can do, and you can see a couple elements of each of those strategies in this deck. I went with something, let's say, easy mode. I built a Rat Colony deck. So, of course, Rat Colony, for those who may not be familiar, it is a 2/1 for a black and a generic. It says here that Rat Colony gets +1/+0 for each other rat we control. And the deck can have any number of cards named Rat Colony. This build ended up with 29. I don't know if that's too few or too many. But either way, it seems like a good amount, almost a third of the deck. And a few other supporting creatures to go with that as well, such as Burglar Rat, forcing all my opponents to discard a card. Some of those aristocrat synergies with Cruel Celebrant and with Zulaport Cutthroat. So anytime one of our creatures dies, we get to drain our opponents for a life, and we gain a life. These triggers, of course, help pump up our Karlov. Dranith Magistrate is new for Mycoria as well, and is going to be a major player in our format. Our opponents cannot cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. That means no other companions coming in, no opposing commanders being cast for the command zone, etc., etc. Rounding out our rat synergy is Pack Rat, which for 2 mana gives us a rat whose power and toughness are equal to the number of rats we control, and we can actually pay 3 and discard a card to put a token into play that's a copy of Pack Rat. How's that for sweet synergy? You pay your 3 mana, discard, get your copy of Pack Rat, and then cast whatever it is you just discarded because you have your Larrus out. Cool stuff. And Piper of the Swarm to round out our creature package. Again, black and a 1 gives us a 1/3. Piper of the Swarm is not a rat, but it does give all our rats menace. Also gives us a way to generate rat creature tokens for only 1 black, 1 generic, and a tap. Also, we can sacrifice 3 rats to gain control of target creature. Black, black, 2, and tap to gain control of target creature. So a nice little synergy in the deck. Why not? Let's look at some artifacts here, including our mana ramp, what have you. Arcane Signet. I am running Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star. This is going to be the primary way of drawing cards. I actually decided to leave out Skull Clamp because I wanted to try to keep my rats in play, whereas by using the Sphere and the Star to draw cards for me, it's essentially free. So I can either pay the 1 mana to sacrifice these things, draw a card, and then put it back into play. Or I can use that 1 mana to cast something else, and it literally costs me no mana to draw that card. Dispeller's Capsule and Executioner's Capsule gives us some repeatable removal. In the case of Dispeller's Capsule, it can destroy artifacts and enchantments. Executioner's Capsule destroys non-black creatures for us. Running Expedition Map, this is a nice thing to cast and recast. Got some cool lands that I want to pull out, so why not run the map? Hot Soup, equipped creature cannot be blocked, helps get our rats through. A little bit of ramp with Orzhov Signet. Shadow Sphere, love the Shadow Sphere for the trample on the lifelink. Also make it that permanents our opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible, and the equip cost is very, very low too. Sol Ring, of course. Stoneforge Masterwork. Gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each other creature that we control that shares a type with it, so really good piece of equipment for the tribal strategy. Talisman of Hierarchy is our last piece of ramp. And Universal Solvent can blow up any permanent we want in the mid to late game, especially if we make it up to the 7 mana. Moving on to some enchantments. Authority of the Consuls. Forces our opponents to have their creatures enter the battlefield tapped. That gives our rats a bit more time to swing in for damage. And also, whenever a creature that enters the battlefield under opponent's control, we gain a life. Excellent trigger for Karlov. Blind Obedience, same deal. Also forces our opponent's creatures to enter the battlefield tapped. But rather than life gains triggered by our opponent's creatures coming in, we have Extort. So we can pay the extra white or black mana to drain all our opponents for our life and gain that much life for ourselves. Because our rats have high power but very, very low toughness, threw in both Hyena Umbra and Shadowlance for some first strike. Now in the case of Hyena Umbra, it also gives a +1/+1 buff and the Totem Armor ability, so if the rat would die, it's the Hyena Umbra that would leave the battlefield instead. In the case of Shadowlance, an amazing mana sink. Doesn't give us a +1/+1 buff off the hop, but as many times as we'd like, we can pay the 2 mana into this enchantment to give the enchanted creature +2/+2. Oversold Cemetery rounds out our enchantment package. We need more than one way to bring stuff back from our graveyard, so that's why we are running the Cemetery. Especially if Larrus is ever cast into the game and then removed, because Larrus, if he is removed from the board as a companion, would actually not return to exile. So yeah, so we have to make sure that we can get Larrus back if ever he's, say, destroyed. And that is why we need extra pieces of graveyard recursion in this build. We'll see more of that here in our instance. Death Denied, of course, black, X, get X creature cards back from our graveyard to our hand. Still in that first strike train here with Defiant Strike and Guided Strike, giving whatever creature we target with it +1/+0 and first strike and drawing us a card. D-Spark, exile target permanent with converted mana costs 4 or greater. Get some big things off the table. Disenchant, another way to destroy artifacts or enchantments that we need gone. Also running Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares. And for sorceries, we're going to run Return from Extinction, which let's just get a creature card back from our graveyard to our hand, or 2 creature cards that share a type. Tariff, a great piece of removal. Each player chooses a creature with the highest converted mana cost they control, then pays mana equal to that cost or sacrifices that creature. So, yeah, for 2 mana, we blow up all our opponent's most expensive creatures. Ours only ever costs 2, so it'll be very easy for us to pay our tariff. Unearth, a great recursion spell, just 1 mana, gives us any creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less back from our graveyard to the battlefield. And lastly, a Wrath effect, Winds of Abandon. Yes, we could pay 2 and basically have to exile an opponent's creature at sorcery speed. Or we could pay the 6 and wipe everyone's board. I don't like giving up that much of a mana advantage to our opponents, but if we have to, I guess, why not? And for our lands, running Bojuka Bog, Bonder's Enclave is definitely a favorite. It's a great way to draw cards off of a land. Cabal Coffers. We are running the Cabal Coffers and Urborg package in this deck. There it is right here on the bottom. Castle Locked-Wing, another way to draw cards for us off of a land. Caves of Karlov for both our colors. Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, and Tamorphic Expanse. All the usual suspects here for pulling out our basics. Godless Shrine, of course, the Shock Land. Isolated Chapel should consistently come into play untapped. We have more than enough basics to take advantage of their checks. Orzhov Basilica. 1 land that can tap to pay for any card in our deck. Sure thing, I'll take that. Also running the Guildgate, 7 Plains, a Rogue's Passage, Shambling Vent, Strip Mine, take out a cube land that an opponent controls because it's a good idea. 9 Swamps, Swarm Yard. Tap to regenerate target insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. Since we really won't need the mana on this one, I will definitely take that tap ability. Running the Tainted Field, so as long as we have a swamp, this taps for both our colors. Templar of Silence for the Scry. Gives us 35 lines, which is a little bit low, but again, our average CMC is 1.7. So I'm not terribly worried about that. So yeah, that's what I come up with for Karlov of the Ghost Council and Larrus of the Dream Den Companion. Did I take the easy way out? Kind of. But I also balance that with the fact that I made every card CMC 2 or less and not just the permanents. Both Orzhov commanders are an excellent choice if you wanted to run Larrus as a companion. You may also run Larrus as a commander and ignore that restriction entirely. So lots of options with this guy. Already apparently making waves digitally in many formats, including Standard, Pioneer, Modern. So definitely keep an eye out on this guy. He's probably going to be one of the money cards from this set. And on that, the house is starting to wake up, so I'm going to get going and make some breakfast. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time.